I would get yourself a metal one, as they're just way nicer. And then I spin mine about as far forward as I can get away with, because thousandths matter if you're racing to the finish line.
From Mooresville, Indiana, he drives the Daystar Directional Drilling, Edco General Contractors, Collision Concepts, BooyahDarts.com 35. It's Zach Hampton.
So, next step, because it is part of the front end, is we've got a little safety cap here. We're going to spin this off. We're going to grab our pitman arm. As you can see, I run a bent one. They make one, usually for wing cards, you'll see that these are straight, but this is broached. Like, this is the angled piece. And funny enough, like, when I got Rob, he said, no, you want these because they're stronger, you want them bent. So XYZ actually did this for me specifically. I run a lot of their components where I can, bird cages, arms, steering arms, and such. So they do a lot of, even All-Star Performance, anyone wants a little tidbit, they do all of All-Star's stuff, and then just a label goes on there that says All-Star instead of XYZ. So yeah, one thing I notice I always have to do, as you can see, this isn't going to want to line up quite. So I end up, let's grab our speed tool here. So it's usually on new ones that I have this problem. And I don't know if it's got to do with the anodizing or what, right? But we're going to take our bolt out, thread it in, maybe the back way. Go till I can just see that it's about to pop up, and then I grab a nice fat washer, grab myself a nice washer. What I'm going to do is put that in there to where it grabs, right? And then that's going to kind of spread this open. Right? And you shouldn't have to like really beat that thing on there. Really, you shouldn't have to do that either. But I find that I often do. So just so I can make sure that that's timed right. So again, left hand time facing inward. I'm going to try to get you guys a little bit better angle here of what I'm doing. So I'm going to go onto the steering arm or combo arm. Probably depends on what part of the country you're in. You can call it either thing. It doesn't really matter. Snug that up. So the reason I do that side first, right, is now I can get that where it's straight. And really, you can see this was on, yeah, I've got it upside down. So the way you can tell is, see that angle is not matching that angle. And then as I look at that, I wasn't paying attention. You can see the rub marks. So it definitely is important. That rub mark is proof that this is facing the proper direction so that it doesn't loosen and spin this off. So we're going to flip that back over. Tighten that back up. I guess it doesn't matter. It's just wants to be difficult. So we're going to grab a 3/4 inch wrench. So I'm not going to be changing the angle much here. So I'm not too worried. Just barely crack that. So I'm just looking at something here. All right, so kind of what I did there, as you saw, I spun it one tighter. So when my left front is straight, see how that's angled pretty forward? Now, no more than I'm going to counter steer in a wing car, I'm never going to cross that like straight up and down thing. Yeah, you don't want to cross that like pivotal point as it kind of, raises and lowers this. And I'm not saying you will or can or whatever feel it, but I think you can. And it's just, to me, it's important that you don't cross that barrier. So let's go ahead. All right, and let's snug that up first. Now we'll snug that up. I'm not sure I finished my story, actually. I kind of got lost talking about XYZ. But so the reason I run this angled one, or not angled, but bent, is when I hired Rob, he's like, no, these are stronger. That's what you want. And I was like, whatever, man. Like, if that's what you want. And he's like, the other ones are whatever, more likely to break, right? And I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. I've never had troubles with them, but okay. So he had these made, and then, I lost Rob, and I'd ordered some new pitman arms, and I was like, I'm not going to, mess with having Tim bend them for me. So I just got normal ones, and I had one that was really new, break or strip off. So he gave me a lot of shit for that, Rob did. And it's nothing against XYZ. Like, it's kind of one of those things, if it happens once every 5 years, it's going to happen to me. So now we can tighten our safety down, and then I like to just make sure that my arm is all the way out, right? And then we're going to tighten this a bit with our wrench, and then we'll go over it more when we get to them. But all arms and stops, torsion arms, torsion stops, this is your pitman arm. They're all going to get torqued, and they're going to be 27. Now, Stevie's stops say 30 now. I don't know if they always did or what, but I've always been a 27 on all these things. I've never had one fall off. So I know guys who go 26. I know guys who go 27, 28, 29, 30. It really doesn't matter. If you're in that range, and if you've got good bolt maintenance, making sure they're greased and, like all that, and, you don't have burrs everywhere, then you're not going to have a problem. So last thing we're going to do is another mandatory tether. I said last thing, there's actually one other small thing. Mandatory tether here, and I screwed up. We're going to take this off. I'm pretty sure every time I've ever gone to put one of these on, I've done this, but you have to slip over that. I actually think there are some brands where it's like kind of a latch system on both sides, but not the brand I run, so you have to slip it over. And this is All-Star Performance. I would almost be betting that Ultra Shield makes these, only because it's made in Texas, and I don't know any other like companies in sprint car racing that make stuff in Texas. All right, so for anyone who doesn't know, this is going to be the same for your belts, but you've got your first deal going in here, right? You're going to loop this around back to where you're on the top, and you come back through the same direction. You're going to get that, tight. And then the proper way is you actually go back, you go over the first part, and it's usually a really tight fit. Maybe I can get it. Yeah, take that. All right, so there you go. The last other thing that's got nothing to do with the front end itself, but it goes on the front of the car, so we're going to do it, is our transponder mount. Not every series uses this, but this is the style of transponder that the World of Outlaws use and Knoxville uses, and everyone else should too. I don't know if High Limit will or will not. I know the All-Stars didn't use this style, and they had a little bag on the rear of the car, and that's how USAC does it, and it's the dumbest thing I think I've ever seen in sprint car racing, because last time I checked, you don't look at photo finishes of the ass of the car. So I don't really know why in the world any of them do that, but, they do. So that's just a little, canvas shitty pouch or whatever. So that gets zip tied on even. So I don't leave it on the car. If I have to run that style transponder, I put it on. But I've got the pouch. I think they're dumb. If you couldn't tell. They do make these, and they make plastic ones of these that zip tie on and are still a permanent whatever style, whatever. But if you run at Knoxville or anywhere that's going to you have to run, you're going to run one here on the car all the time, I would get yourself a metal one, as they're just way nicer. And then I spin mine about as far forward as I can get away with, because thousandths matter if you're racing to the finish line. So, and then I've actually kind of cleaned that off, and that's just because some transponders are a little bit tighter than others, and it can be hard to get onto that. But you don't have to. All right, there we go. The front end is built and complete. So I'm going to do a pause. I'm going to try to see if practice is on Dirt Vision at Volusia, and then I'll be back and we're going to square this front end. So got the Outlaws going, watching a bit of practice, just watch the fender features. Got myself a Subway sandwich for dinner. Let's square this front end. So the first step, because all the radius rods were tight, and we really were just putting them on there to hold the axle while we got it all in. First thing that we're going to do is break all of our jam nuts free. This thing's been in the car already, so I don't know if it was in this car or not, but I don't expect to have to adjust much of our stuff here, right? But Pan-R bar is going to come loose as well. So we got our left front, our two right fronts, and our Pan-R bar loose. So first step in squaring this bad boy is going to be Pan-R bar and getting this thing nice and centered. I'm not really sure there's a great height here, so you know what, we'll just go low. Go low. So there's some people who measure like arm to tire or arm to whatever. But how I do it is I'm gonna get this stud, this, you know, where the panhard hook's on here is gonna be dead center of your frame rail here. So you can eyeball it. I would say I probably do, but I have, you know, like I've done it a bunch and know exactly how it looks. So the easiest thing to do is measure off your panhard upright over here, maybe, right? So, and just measure where your center is there. So really it's kind of 20 and a half, but I really think I'm going to call it 20 and 5/8, right? So then we just slide up, right? And looks like I need to lengthen just a little bit. There we go. And you got to be careful because with the top rail, right, you can't look straight down. So kind of look on both sides and make sure, you know, like it's not distorted or anything like that. So we can tighten the panhard. All right. Panhard's good. Next step, we're going to throw a couple of bars in here. So you'll see why I'm going to put these bars in. Really, you really only need the right front bar in right now, but, you know, we're putting one in. Why not do both? Right, so the reason we've done that is we're going to throw our right front arm on here. All right, so this doesn't really need to be tight, but we're going to just snug it up so it can't go anywhere. So here's the first step in like quote-unquote square your front end. The most important part, unlike the rear where we measured from the motor plate to the rear end, your right front arm angle is really what you're looking for here. So I'm going to go 13 and 5/8, and that is from the center of your torsion bar to where it lands on your axle, right? So I'm not going to really be able to show exactly how I do this, but instead of trying to hold this thing, you know, whatever, center there, I just go ahead and I line up my 2 mark, dead center, right? And I lied. I don't know why I said 13 and 5/8. I definitely meant 15 and 5/8. So right now I'm looking more like a strong, I'm like 9/16, right? So I'm gonna want to go in on these. I'm gonna go 1 turn each. I like that. So now that this side's done, we are gonna measure off our axle, right? Just to get what it is. So you're still gonna go to the same part, your motor plate. So stick, maybe. And your clamps kind of get in the way a little bit, but So I am right at 46 and a quarter. So we're gonna go to our left side over here, and here's the big thing. So you might hear guys talk about their right front lead. And that's a big thing. It does change a lot. And what that means is you pull your left side of your axle backwards so that it's like a 16th, an 8th, 3/16ths, a quarter of an inch closer to the rear end than the right side. So the right front, like if you're going straight, the right front is actually ahead of the left front, right? So I would say 1/8 inch is probably super standard. And some guys will be like an 1/8, and then maybe if they go to a little quarter mile, like, you know, Jacksonville, Placerville, somewhere real tiny, you know, they might go to a quarter. I've kind of been a little bit of everywhere, but last year I started just running straight up, you know, no lead, and I seem to really like it. So we're 46 and a quarter on that side, so that's what we're going to be looking for on this side. So we're going to get our tape measured up. So I'm looking a little over, right? Like I'm like a 16 or so too far forward there. So we're gonna spin. We're gonna spin our left front, radius right here inward. That's where I want to be. That puts me even, right? So 46 and a quarter on both sides. I got 15 and 5/8 arm angle, or not arm angle, but arm length. And that's where I'm going to be. I would say 15 and a half is where a lot of guys are on their right front arm length. Not wrong. You know, I've been at that as well. And I've just found that I like, you know, as I played with some small things like that, I found that I like it better at 15 and 5/8, and whether that's in my head or not, I don't know, but that doesn't make it right or wrong. You know, I'd say 90% of the sport's mental, so if that's what a guy or the driver or the crew chief or whoever wants and, you know, thinks that's better, then that's where it should be. So obviously building the front end is the most time-consuming part with the front end. Actually squaring the front end is super quick and easy compared to the rear. You don't have as many moving components. So that's going to be squaring your front end. And like I said, if you've got a different number where you run your left front out a little bit more or whatever, you know, you can change those things. But this is pretty close to standard and at least going to put you in the right ballpark. So the next thing we're going to do, and it'll probably get fast forwarded for most of it, but I'm going to show you guys why I put the bladder back in the shell, get the top plate ready, and get that ready to go on. And then once we get that on, we'll probably go ahead and get some torsion arms and get the same ride heights done before we put the motor in. And that way it's just not, you know, flopping around on these blocks and kind of has something holding it.